Now, in some news coming through in the last 1 hour, the opposition NDC has put forward MP for Nadoli Kallio Alban Bagbin as its nominee for Speaker of the 8th Parliament, setting up a face-off with the NPP, which has also put out its nomination for the role. The NDC's nomination comes despite threats by the governing NPP that the NDC could lose the second deputy speaker slot if it went ahead to file a nominee for the speaker position. My colleague Kwesi Parker-Wilson has been monitoring a meeting by the functional executive committee of the party, which ended a while ago, and he joins us via Zoom. Now, Parker, so what is this news coming through that Alban Bagbin has been nominated by the NDC as Speaker? Apparently, he wasn't the only nomination they've put forward. They've named other leadership positions.
That's correct, Israel. And, since morning, it's been rumored that Alban Bagbin was going to be, the NDC was going to select Alban Bagbin as the nominee for the Speaker position going forward into the 8th Parliament. Now, just about an hour ago, the party held a functional executive committee to approve the nomination of Alban Bagbin. So they have instructed their members in Parliament to submit the name of Mr. Alban Bagbin, the outgoing member of Parliament for Nadoli Kallio. And this is coming on the back of some threats issued by the NPP that if indeed the NDC goes ahead to file Speaker nominee, what is going to happen is that they risk losing the second deputy speaker position. Well, the party called the bluff of the NPP. They say that the NPP does not or would not control the 8th Parliament absolutely, just as they've done in the 7th Parliament. They occupy 137 seats equally, and so they have every right to file a nominee for the speaker position. And interestingly, Israel, the party also instructed their members in the House to refer themselves as the majority side of a parliament going into the next parliament or the 8th Parliament. And we don't know how it's going to pan out, but that's been the instruction from the party to the NDC side in the House. Again, the party says that they're going to maintain the current leadership of the House. That is from the NDC side. So Haruna Idrisu will still be the leader of the NDC in Parliament. That is the next Parliament, the 8th Parliament. James Aveji will deputize him. And going forward, Muntaka Mubra of Asumasi had earlier indicated to us that he desired to maintain his position as the chief whip. And so the party granted that. He still remains the chief whip of the NDC. And then Ahmed Ibrahim plus Comfortable Gans that would deputize them respectively. So these are the nominations that the NDC has put forward going forward into the 8th Parliament. And so they're insisting that going into the 8th Parliament, they hold majority, and that their side of the House should refer to themselves as the majority going into the 8th Parliament.
Now, going by what you're just saying, as in the NDC deciding that they're going to describe themselves as the majority, I would want to believe that then majority, they are believing or seeing Haruna Idrisu as majority leader, not minority leader.
That's correct. They are seeing Haruna Idrisu as the majority leader. So I've been told by the party that in a communique to Parliament, that is the description of Haruna Idrisu. They refer to him as the majority leader for the 8th Parliament and not the minority leader. And so they are insisting that they equally, since the NPP is claiming majority with 137 seats, they are equally occupying 137 seats. So they can also refer themselves as a majority in the House. And I'm sure I'm going forward into the 8th Parliament or after the swearing-in, we'll get to know who actually is the majority or not. But that is the position from the NDC. And this afternoon, when we spoke to Haruna Idrisu himself at the State of the Nation in Parliament, he also described himself as a potential majority leader in the 8th Parliament.
Right.
And so for him, he has already argued that position to himself as a majority leader. So it's not surprising that the party has now officially communicated to Parliament to let them know that, well, their side also be referred to as majority. And so they need to accord the needed respect to the majority leader in the words of the NDC party. And that's Haruna Idrisu.
All right, thank you very much, Kwesi Parker-Wilson. Also joining us is parliamentary correspondent Joseph Opoku Gakpo, who has been following Parliament for a while now, and he actually understands the dynamics that's going to be at play. Now, Joseph, we're expecting that all this is going to be set out, and we're going to get to know who determines the speakership or who wins the speakership. So how is this going to play out come midnight of January 6th going into 7th?
And so the MPs will begin convening on the dawn, well, actually the 9th. So on the 9th of the 6th of January, around 10:30, the new MP elects will be gathering in Parliament House. And then the expectation is that at 12 midnight, going into the Thursday morning, then the sitting will begin. It may delay for some minutes, maybe 30 minutes to an hour, and eventually begin a little later than that, as has been the case as we've seen over the years. And the Clerk of Parliament will then take his seat as the one who presides over the sitting, because by then there will be no speaker. So the clerk is the one who would oversee the processes as far as electing a speaker is concerned. And so MPs will then go ahead and propose their nominated candidates. And the requirement is that anyone whose name is proposed should have given his consent to being proposed in writing to the clerk. So those conversations should have happened behind the scenes. So an MP will propose, and then there will be a seconding of it. Another MP will have to second it. There will be no debate. And then if there are other candidates, then their names will be proposed as well. So in this case, what we will see is an MP from the NPP side proposing Professor Michael Quay, and another MP seconding that proposal. After that, an NDC MP will propose Alban Bagbin, then that will be seconded. And then the clerk will then go ahead and oversee the processes and get his staff to come in and get the balloting, the ballot papers out. Then there will be the secret voting, most likely, based on which after that the counting will be done and the declaration will be done of who exactly has won the poll.
All right, so there's going to be secret voting, which means that it's possible that one MP or an MP for one side is going to vote for a nomination made from the other side. But apparently the chief whips are making it, they're making sure that that's not going to happen. Explain how that's going to work out.
It looks very much so. And even apart from that, there's the possibility that an MP can spoil a ballot. Maybe mistakenly, maybe deliberately, can print on or probably write the names of the two individuals on the paper, or probably pretend as if he had written something on the paper but actually writes nothing and dumps it in there, and so then it becomes a spoiled ballot.
All right, but my understanding is that the whips are supposed to see how you voted before you cast that ballot.
No, not necessarily. So on the previous occasion that they've been voting in the House, the names of individual MPs are mentioned and they are called to the front area and they are handed papers. Then they write their names in it and then it gets deposited in a box and then the counting is done. Usually it has to do with the role of more like polling agents, which the whips would usually serve as at the time that the voting is ongoing. But the voting itself is supposed to be secret. But of course, the job of the whip is to ensure that they encourage their members to show up and give them reasons to vote for the candidate the party is pushing for. But when he is there casting his vote, it's between himself and his God.
All right. So looking at how close this is, the MPP having 137 MPs and the NDC having 137, with the Formula MP being the only independent candidate. Should it happen that one MP from one side fails to show up for any reason at all, it could affect the outcome of the poll?
Precisely, and it could result in a tie as far as the voting is concerned. Interesting enough, the standing orders and even the Constitution doesn't make room for what happens when there is a tie. It only makes room for a situation where there are more than 3 people casting, standing for the position, and then there's a tie and the last person gets eliminated. But when it has to do with 2 people standing for the position, there is no provision for what happens under situations where there's a tie. Then the voting has to be done again and probably again until one way or the other someone manages to win.
All right. And
just to mention that on the bit about MPs, someone not showing up. Funny enough, just about 2 weeks ago, the majority leader told MPs that they should be very careful with their security and beef up their security going forward, so that then everyone is available to cast their votes on the dawn of the 7th of January. I don't know why he said that, but there probably was a reason to that.
Now, there are 101 reasons why an MP may end up not showing up on the day. So it could be he has his car breaks down, or for some reason he's unwell. He ends up in the hospital. There are 101 reasons. Now, that's the reason you should stay tuned in to Joynews, because we're going to bring you, this is unprecedented, and we're going to bring you live coverage of proceedings in Parliament, and it's going to be all through until the inauguration of President Akufo-Addo as for his second term. And so do stay tuned in. But thank you very much, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, for bringing us that insight from Parliament.